Give me a minute and I'll give you an update on what's happening in the Kherson direction. As you know, I haven't been reporting on this because the Ukrainian MOD, the Ministry of Defense, asked for a media blackout on it. But in the last 24 hours or so, they themselves have released a bunch of information and video footage. So let's take a look at it. The first thing that the Ukrainian Ministry of Defense has told us is that they have moved about 400 men into the Krinky area. Now, guys, 2 weeks ago, there were maybe 300 men in all of the bridgeheads. Now you're talking about 400 men just in Krinky. So they took advantage of the bad weather last weekend to move men and equipment across the river under the cover of the weather and increase the force concentrations in these areas. Then, when it cleared, they carried out numerous strikes across all these areas. Now, those blue X's that you see there, those are the approximate locations of some of these Ukrainian strikes. Let's take a look at them. We know that barracks and the places where Russian forces were billeting were targeted. At least 5 concentrations of Russian forces were hit by HIMARS strikes, including this one, which featured, you can see behind the house there, that piece of equipment is a command and control vehicle. And so it's a communication center. And what we seem to see here, and the commanders were billeted in these houses. These houses are no longer standing. That piece of equipment is no longer in existence. The video shows it being flattened by HIMARS strikes. And then there's an additional series of videos showing force concentrations being hit. In addition to force concentrations and commanders, we have still photos of this attack on a police station in the occupied Kherson direction, where apparently there was a meeting going on. And partisans alerted the Ukrainian army to the fact that there was this meeting going on, that there were at least 5 high-level Russian officials here, as well as police captains, police commanders, and policemen in the occupied territory. According to sources, 4 police officers were unalived, 18 were injured, and 5 commanders of Russian forces were eliminated. The Ukrainians also targeted air defense systems, which is critical for preserving the Ukrainian drone advantage. Here, this was a Book 2 air defense system that was smoked completely. There's also video of a Book 3 air defense system being hit. Now, in addition to the force concentration movement into the Krinky direction or onto the left bank, because you can be sure that if they built up the forces in Krinky like that, the other bridgeheads have also been reinforced. In addition to the force concentration movements, the equipment movements, the attacks against air defense systems, the attacks against Russian forces and Russian command and control, we also got this video. These are Ukrainian Marines training, is what we're being told. This is a video of them training with amphibious assault vehicles on the Dnipro. Now, if that doesn't say that they're getting ready to land in force on the left bank and advance, I don't know what does. But it certainly looks like that they either are or they definitely want the Russians to believe they are. It's one or the other. Now, if it's that they want them to believe they are, but it's a feint, then it's likely an attempt to get the Russians to move reserves from the Zaporizhzhia area or from Avdiivka or Bakhmut, somewhere else along the line, in an effort to halt the Ukrainians where they are. But I don't think that's what it is, because increasingly we see that the 6-foot Russian army is trying to sleep in a bed with a 5-foot blanket. And every time they pull that blanket up to cover their chest, their feet are exposed. And every time they cover their feet, their chest is exposed. And the Ukrainians take advantage of it every time. So it looks to me like the Russians keep trying to cut 6 inches off the top of that blanket and sew it to the bottom, thinking that that's going to be the solution. And it ain't. It ain't. I want to thank Paula Prock, who is the sponsor of today's video. She joined the Patreon, and I appreciate her, and welcome to the Patreon. Thanks, Paula.